Hello, it's Ben with the DIY Homefront, and today on the channel I'm going to be working on my 1025R John Deere tractor. And if you own one of these, you know they're your little pride and joy. So I'm going to pamper my girl after I get all the grease fittings taken care of with the aftermarket product. Stick around and I'll show you what I mean. Well, she's got quite a few grease fittings on the loader. A total of 6 on each side, and we also have a couple grease fittings underneath the tractor. I go through a lot of blue shop towels and a lot of paint thinner whenever I do with the grease fittings, because I like to clean everything up before I go to put some grease in them. Well, if you're curious what I've been up to, I normally put videos out on Tuesday or Thursday, sometimes more than one. Well, I normally saturate these blue shop towels with the mineral spirits, and then I just try to get as much of the dirt and grease away from the grease fittings as I can. Because the last thing I want to do is hook up the grease gun to these grease fittings and actually push dirt into these pivot points on the hydraulic cylinders. There's also a lot of old and dirty grease that gets pushed out from the pin at these pivot points, and I try to remove all that grease to the best of my ability too. And it's a lot harder to get all that old grease out of some of these pivot points, especially the ones that are a little bit lower on the tractor. If my memory serves me right, you're supposed to grease all these grease fittings every 10 hours of operation on the tractor. But I have never done that. Probably the biggest use my tractor gets is when I'm going to have the forks on the front and I'm getting something out of the pickup truck and I'm taking it someplace into the yard. Now, to clean the grease from some of these pivot points, I actually had to raise the bucket up into the air. But I left the tractor running to keep constant hydraulic pressure on these cylinders. And here's the before and after. Cleaning them up definitely makes a big difference. Well, with the grease fittings and pivot points all cleaned up, it's time to add some fresh grease to this front end loader. I normally just start squeezing the handle on the grease gun until I can see fresh grease coming out around the pivot points. I also replaced the standard end of my grease gun with this one from Lock & Lube, which allows you to actually reach out and clip onto the grease fitting, which eliminates a lot of problems and mess. Alright, here's the first of 2 products that are going to be a slight upgrade for my John Deere tractor. You might be wondering what these green discs are. Well, they're dust caps that go over the grease fittings on the front end loader. Well, both the products I'm going to show you came from Amazon.com, and I'll leave the information in the video description, but here's the part number that was on the bag. So let me show you where these go and we'll figure out if they're any good or not. Well, I cleaned the grease fittings after I got done with the grease gun, but check it out. You just end up taking these little plastic pieces and popping them into the hole. And after you've done that, your grease fittings will stay clean until the next time you go to use them. Well, unfortunately, it looks like I might have spoke too soon. The front loader has those 2 cast members on each side, and these plastic covers don't seem to want to fit on the large hole on the cast piece. Well, that's a little disappointing. I was really hoping to use these to keep these grease fittings clean. Well, it was the same way on the other side of the tractor too. Those covers popped onto the machined parts easily, but wouldn't stay in place on the cast iron part. Well, I wonder if this company knew that, because there's 12 grease fittings on the front end loader and they only sent 8 covers in this kit. Well, my solution for this problem is I'll just take a shop towel and put it underneath that little cover, and when I push it in place, the shop towel will hold it there securely. And that should eliminate any of the irregularities in the casting of that part, which is making the cover loose to start with. And then I can just go back with the razor blade and trim up around the outside of it. That just leaves the 2 grease fittings on the very front of the front loader that don't have a dust cap on them. But I'm thinking that those probably aren't supposed to have one on it, because they could easily get knocked off, because that's where all the work is going to happen. Well, let's move on to product number 2. Hopefully it does a little bit better than those dust covers on the front end loader. These caps are designed to fit on the floor mat of the tractor and cover up the bolt holes to keep dirt and debris from filling them up. Well, the first step would be just to clean up all this area and to blow all the dirt and debris, especially from around all the bolt holes. It looks like these are molded in 3 specific types of plugs to go in certain places on the floor mat. Well, I didn't expect this. I wonder if this is one of the differences between a 1025R and a 1023E. The 1025 has an additional rubber mat to help protect the floor area of the tractor. Well, if anybody has a 1023E tractor and knows the answer to that question, leave me a comment. And now for those of you that are new to my channel, if you like this video, please leave a like. Even if you're not going to subscribe, please leave a like. It would help out a lot. It takes a little bit of force, but the plugs go in easy enough, and I believe there's probably a tight enough fit to keep water from being able to get in around them. There's only 2 of the plugs that are designed to either be right or left hand plugs. Just like the other product, those green caps for the front end loader, I think these are probably just about looks more than anything else. It just really cleans up the appearance of these floor mats on your tractor. I'll do the same thing on the other side of the tractor. I'll blow everything off really good before I put these plugs in each individual spot. I've had these for about a month and I wish I would have put them on sooner. I mean, they really do look pretty good. Alright, the only thing left to do is to get those hard to get to grease fittings underneath the tractor that go with the powertrain. There's 2 of them that are on the PTO shaft for the deck, and I won't grease those 2 fittings because they go with the belly mower, which I don't ever use. Here's one of the universal joint grease fittings that goes from the engine to the hydrostatic transmission. If you're lucky enough to have the tractor on flat level ground, you can actually grab the drive shaft and turn it by hand until you get the grease fitting pointing to where you can actually have access to it. I'll try to clean off any old grease from the grease fitting, just like I did all the others. Then I'll take the lock and lube and attach it to the grease fitting and give the grease gun 2 pumps with my hand before I move on to the next one. Well, the next grease fitting is the hardest one to get to. It's the grease fitting that's on the U-joint that goes from the engine to the hydrostatic transmission. Do you see the little hole I'm pointing at? If you were to look straight up through that, you would be able to see the grease fitting for that universal joint that comes out of the backside of the engine. And that is the one that's extremely difficult to get to. I have an extension that I can attach to my lock and lube, and that is the only way I have found to be able to get to that grease fitting. I apologize, I don't have a good camera angle of that because there's just no room in where it's at. It's almost impossible to try to look where you're going and have the camera look in the same place because there's only that one little hole you can look through. Well, the last 2 grease fittings are the easiest to get to. It's the grease fittings on the shaft that goes between the hydrostatic transmission and the front axle. Now I am at the front axle and there's a rubber boot that you remove that exposes the universal joint. And you can see right there, that's a very easy grease fitting to get to. Well, I'll give it 2 pumps with the grease gun and then I'll take my rag and wipe off any excess I can get to, and then the boot goes back on. Well, with the hose clamp tightened up and the boot secured, it's off to that last grease fitting. All you need to do is follow that same shaft towards the back of the transmission. And just before you get to the transmission, you should find that last U-joint and that last grease fitting. Well, there you go, a couple hours on the tractor and I enjoyed myself. Those 2 products look like they may be useful. I don't know about the ones that go on the loader, but the ones that go on the footrest will definitely end up keeping a lot cleaner. Well, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, check out my other playlist, and I'll see you in that next video.